Hi, this is Tim Fraser from Forsys, and I'm here with Joanna Kane-Potaka, and we're here to talk about the International Women's Day. So, Joanna, very nice to have you here and be with us, Four Sisters, to talk about international women as a person that's just been in the business and done a lot of amazing things. So, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you have gone to where you are today in your role as Executive Director of Smart Food Initiative. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into a little bit of what you have to share with our teams.
Sure. Thanks, Tim, and happy Women's Day to you and to everyone at Forsys. And I'm really, really happy to be here. So my career, well, I'm Australian, so I started my career as an economist. I worked in Australia. I then later moved into market research, and then always wanted to work overseas. Loved the idea of other cultures and what it's like. And so more than 20 years ago, I moved overseas, and I've lived in Malaysia and Philippines and Italy and Sri Lanka. And now I've been in India for 8 years. And I've been working with different international non-profit organizations. So really working with poverty and hunger and malnutrition and environmental degradation in these countries. And I've been very privileged to have an exciting life. And it's like when you're living overseas like this and in really different countries, really different cultures, it's like every day is an adventure. It's not like just another day at work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your ideas of growing through your career as an up and coming woman and growing to be an executive level position. What would be who was your mentor? How did you get to where you're doing? How did you? We don't do this by ourselves often, a lot, and that takes a lot of a lot of intestinal fortitude to be on the road by yourself. Did you have a mentor? Did you have anybody that helped you set your goals and achieve them and be a strong woman in your career?
Yeah. What I find with mentorship is it's not a case of just identifying one person and then saying, will you be my mentor? I think the best thing is you look all around you and you just strategically ask, you watch, you engage with people in the right way to always be learning from them, and then making sure you're giving back to others as well. I've worked, because I work, and most of my field has been in agriculture and in science. So it's a very male dominated environment. So you're typically in meetings and you're often the only woman. Sometimes there's a few, but there's 90% men 90% of the time. So it's a tougher environment in that way. And you have to find the balance between being yourself, but also adapting to the environment. That's a reality as well. And how you have to be a little more forthright. You have to be prepared to stand out. You have to go out of your comfort zone.
Very good. So with International Women's Day, the theme is choose to challenge. Do you have any, let's just say, your impression of what that means to you and how you would, let's just say, send that message out to the Forsys team about what it might mean to them in your work?
My biggest challenge in the last 7 years I've been doing it now is this Smart Food Initiative. So about 7 years ago, I came up with the new idea of, which was really challenging status quo. And it was saying, in these developing countries, and actually even globally, we have a dominance of three foods, so wheat, maize, and rice. And in these developing countries, those staples are typically 70% on someone's plate, and they're typically the least nutritious food, and they're typically water guzzling crops, and they're not climate smart, and they're causing huge problems. And so we said, we've got to change that. We've got to diversify the staples. Now, no one's ever done that, and everybody said, you can't do it. And I said, no, we can. We got to focus. We got to choose one or two foods. We've got to choose the right foods, and we've got to build those value chains. We've got to bring industry behind it. We've got to bring government behind it, and we can do it. And that's the only way to have big impact. And everybody said, you can't change people's diets. If you did, we wouldn't have the quantities growing at Nobody knows about these other crops. It was everything that you couldn't do. But we persisted because, well, I saw that this absolutely was critical to make a major change. And we'd chosen, I don't know if any of you in the US or India, well, Indians will have to know their millets and sorghum. So the bajra and the ragi and the jowar. Sorry, for those who know the Hindi.
They will.
Yeah. It's sort of bringing them back. They were the traditional foods and bringing them back. And so we selected them to work on and bring them back globally. And actually, we just this week had a big breakthrough where an initiative we started with and the government of India has led. We just had the UN General Assembly meet and approve 2023 as the UN International Year of Millets. So it's going to happen.
I saw that on your website. Yes, it's fantastic. And actually, it's so funny because just last night I had dinner with another author friend of mine, and she ordered quinoa and millet.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
We had a conversation on this exact topic, and I'm speaking with you, and I went to the site and I saw the white millet is one of the key elements that you guys, I guess, crops that you're talking about. So it's fantastic. You actually have a little bit more to share on this topic. I'd like to give you the floor to share a little bit about how women are, let's just say, in your industry and how it's very different. I mean, obviously in tech, we have a high percentage of men as well, but women are certainly a very strong, player in our space. But the ratios are off, right? And you said the ratios are really, really off in your industry as well. So I want to hear a little bit about the challenges, especially in India, since Forsys has a very strong presence in India. And this would be very relevant, I think, for their friends and family as well, because there's a lot of things that you mentioned about rural parts of the country that might be interesting to see how women are challenged in that space. So you have a presentation, or you want to talk through that? I'm very much would love to hear that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tim. Well, yeah, I thought it would be interesting actually to give a little insight into, well, we can talk about the corporate world, definitely can talk about that easily too, but what's it like for poor rural communities in these developing countries across Asia and Africa? Because they're the people we work with as a non-profit. We're working in those rural communities, and it's hugely different, and it's so interesting, and it's good to see a very different life of people, which are still billions of people that are living like this. So basically, what you find is the different the women. So about 50% of women in Asia and Africa, or people in agriculture, are women in Asia and Africa. Now, that percentage is disputed because a lot of unpaid labour are women, or unrecognised work is done by the women. But still, at least 50% of agricultural workers are women. So they're big in the agricultural field. Okay. But what they find is they've said that women farmers are 20 to 30% less productive than men in agriculture. Now you'd think, why? Why would women be less productive than men in agriculture? But what it is they have so fewer opportunities. Like, they have less access to inputs. The men have much better access to things. They have less access to credit. So, the banks or the lenders will lend more to men than they will to women. They have less access to capacity building. And I had an amazing example which just blew me away when I was up in Gujarat, which is a northern state in India, and we had a big multinational company showing us around their agricultural work. And they do a lot of capacity building to help the farmers as well. And so I was with a group of farmers, and I said, oh, well, who's participated in any capacity building? And every one of the men put up their hand, and not one woman did. And I said, oh, so why haven't the women had any training? And the men said, oh, no, they don't need to, because we can tell them what to do. So I'm sure that wouldn't work in America, but so the men got all the training, and then they could just tell the women what to do. The women still did the work. So, but nobody saw any problem with that. And even with there's a real digital divide the rural women as well. They have much less access to technologies. So for example, they call it the gender gap in diversity. So there's about 31%. And worldwide, there's about 200 million more men than women that have access to internet. And 21% less likely of women less likely to own a mobile phone. So there is still this real digital divide, which impacts then their ability to be productive.
Sure. Absolutely.
And a really shocking statistic is that, especially in developing countries, there's a very big bias towards women owning land. So inheritance of family land, which is very important in agriculture, goes to the male of the family. So women farmers own 1% of the land that they're actually cultivating. 1%. That's amazing. So with this lack of resources, then they're less productive in the agriculture. And they did some studies that they showed if women had exactly the same access to resources, then the yields on their farms would increase 20 to 30%. The agricultural production would then increase globally, would increase between 2.5 to 4%. And that is the equivalent of feeding between 100 to 150 million people.
Wow.
Now, that's huge. So just by women not being allowed to have the same access to resources, there's between 100 to 150 million people that will go hungry.
Sure. Wow.
And you know, we know there in these countries do have problems with having enough food and nutrition security. We know the stresses of agriculture and the environment. You know, we know climate change, we're going to have a big change in the effect on agriculture and the production. So just by solving the gender issue is going to help with solving so many issues. And so, I mean, I just thought these were like really interesting, different insights, different challenges the women have there, and how that's impacting poverty globally and a lot of other issues.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of political context around, you know, and certainly with just the historical aspect of males owning the land and the land only going to a male descendant in the family, not even a female descendant. I mean, I grew up in Pakistan, and so I'm actually of Pakistan origin. It's very hard to tell sometimes,
wow.
We fully understand that problem because my dad owned land and it was not transferred to my mom, and so it's a very complicated legal problem in trying to how you get control of the land to a member. If you don't have a male descendant, it becomes a problem in the family. So so I'm just how are women embracing these challenges? I mean, if you put yourself in their shoes, are they choosing to challenge? How are they looking at this problem? Are they just, you know, working within the system? Where do you see obviously I'm not asking for a revolution here. I'm just looking for a psychological revolution in that they're basically tired of being in this position. I don't know, how would you describe the mindset?
Yeah. So there's a lot of challenges. There's cultural challenges. There's and not just that access to resources, and women haven't been used to having the access. But there's a huge number of efforts going on where there's a lot of engagement of women and empowerment of women. You know, they go in, and in India they have what are called self-help groups. So they bring women together, and I think this is what makes a big difference. And they form women's groups so that they're all helping each other. And the learning and the building of confidence, all of that. So there's a lot of group work in that. There's a lot of other initiatives where the government starts to bring in rules, like there's a lot of watershed, community water management, because water is a community resource.
Sure.
And it's not set up like it might be in another country where it's all organized. So the community's got to own that resource and look after it. So government makes rules that 50% of any community watershed committee has to have women on it. and yeah, it's really progressive. And you know, there do have to be these proactive measures taken to help make change. When change is so radical like that,
Yeah.
you need it. But the stories that come out of women that come through the hardest situations and become successful is so inspiring.
It's fantastic that you're doing this work, and also fantastic that you're sharing this, because quite frankly, you know, I live in the West, I'm in the US, and you know, we don't see those problems because it's, you know, the government has, let's just say, put the boundaries around control of resources, and you know, we're much more, you know, let's just say, open. But this is not how the rest of the world is, and these challenges are very real. So thank you for sharing and bringing the awareness of these challenges. So if I could ask you to maybe think about your journey, bring this back to your experience and all here. What would you say as sort of as your parting words of to the team, the Forsys team, and others that watch this video later, things that they can do when they wake up every day to change and challenge their norm?
So over the years, I've brought together what I felt are some of the biggest initiatives in a more Western corporate world, like we're in, and what could really help make change in the workplace. So actually, I have three. So my three big things, which I felt can make a difference and would have in my environment too. So, and each one of them, it's both the men and women have to play a role.
Yes,
because it absolutely, change will only happen if both women and men help make that change. If only one side does, it definitely won't work.
Agreed. I'm glad you said that. I'd like to also fully support that. I actually, in the interest of trying to be better prepared for this talk, I've done some reading, and I had this awareness. I'm also a very balanced energy in terms of a male and feminine energy, and I'm not the macho guy, and I'm certainly not the feminine guy. I find that the balance is really an important piece, and what we fail to think is we expect women to function as men in this world. In reality, is we have to bring the men accept the women for where they are, and they understand their perspective. There's a book I would you know, I don't know if you read this. It's called The Gender Intelligence. It's worth a read. And those, I just wanted to plug it for the people on the video, because it's a really important aspect, because it brings, and this is like a personal relationship, you know, man and female coming together, bringing those two together in a balance, as opposed to one becomes the other one becomes, you know, and goes in the other direction. So it's so I just wanted to plug that, because you just triggered a really an important part in my heart about the male has as much responsibility to create the space and understand the woman's place and what their core resources are that we don't have as men. We don't have a lot of the intuition. We don't have a lot of the hard work and effort that it takes for women to live in this world and be the mom and be the you know, breadwinner in a lot of the Western worlds where people are still working, and even in places where they don't have the opportunities to truly create the space of balance. And I just wanted to plug that. So maybe this will get cut out in the video, but I wanted to hear your part of that as well.
Yeah, no, really glad to hear that. So I would agree with that strongly. And I'd also say there's a consciousness we have to grow. People may genuinely believe there should be equality and we should all equally be able to contribute and have the same opportunities. But often you don't realize what's actually happening. You may be a person doing it or not doing it, but there's a real consciousness needed to realize what's actually happening and the dynamics in the workplace and how women may be being disadvantaged. No one's deliberately doing it, but it's happening through our own natural ways of how we are personally as individuals, because we're all individually different. So we have to grow that consciousness.
Agreed. So I disrupted your flow. You were going to share something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't even any of my points, but.
Thank you.
We're
still off script.
Yeah. All right. So 3 things I've found that really make a difference. So the first one is that women really they have to speak out, they have to go forward, they have to take opportunities. But the difference is they have to do it with passion and real belief. There's one thing saying, oh, I've got to force myself to participate more and stand up more and be more confident. But if you really have passion in what you're doing and real belief in it, then it's easy to come out and be more participatory and put yourself forward and lean in. And then the role of men there is to have that consciousness to create those opportunities for women. So in a meeting environment, ensuring the women are brought more into that and engaged more, because they won't always be as proactive in speaking. And there's a lot of small things that women often do that they might not realize. Like I used to sign all my emails with "Thanks, Joanna." And then I suddenly thought, why am I thanking them? I really mean "Regards, Joanna." The women don't have to thank everybody. And often when women talk in environments, they give a qualifying statement first. They say, well, I don't know all the parts of the situation, but maybe this idea might help. Whereas a lot of the men will say, hey, I have a great idea. We should do this. And so it instills more confidence in their suggestion and less confidence in the women's suggestion. So that consciousness of how the women talk is really important. They have to think more about that.
And it's actually a combination of cultural as well as training, right? Because as you pointed out, the apologetic communication style puts you in a subservient position, and that's absolutely not necessary. And I'm glad you brought that out. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like little women in general have less confidence, or they speak like they do even if they don't have it. So they've got to overcome that. And I mean, there's a statistic that says that women will apply for a job when they think they have 100% of the requirements, and men will apply for a job when they have 60% of the requirements. Because they have that extra confidence. They're going to go for it. They're going to put themselves out there. They'll take the risks more. Sure. And so women have to do that more. But then the men in a work environment have to also be more conscious the women are less likely to put themselves forward and create the opportunities. Sure, and push the women along a bit more and build that confidence.
Sure.
So it's a role for both, but both have to take the responsibility. The women can't sit back and wait for the men to give the opportunities, and the men have to take a role as well. Yeah. So I'd asked, actually, I always, whenever I'm going to talk about something and you're not sure what to say, I often ask my kids, and it's really interesting insights you get from your kids. I'd asked my daughter, who was in high school, and I'd said, oh, do you notice any difference in high school and the way the girls or boys are treated? Mm-hmm. And she said to me, oh, well, when we do debates, half the girls don't speak up, and the guys are always talking, and they say really stupid things, but they say it so confidently. and so, even at that young age, the boys are showing more confidence and the girls are being quieter. But a really interesting thing she said, oh, well, when our physical education teacher gives classes, he'll often give more exercises to the boys than the girls, which is showing that the boys can do more. And I thought, wow, that's a subtle message going out to those young kids. But she'd picked up on that, which was good.
Well, it's lovely that you asked the question to create the awareness to communicate that back to you. It brings that awareness a whole nother level for your children, which is fantastic. So maybe they will watch that in their life as well.
Yeah. So that was the first point, more about women have to speak out and come forward more, but doing it with passion helps you do it easier.
Absolutely.
Now, the second thing I've found, and it sounds very mundane, but I really believe this makes a huge, huge difference. and it's using gender inclusive language.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people will use he or man. Now, man has two meanings. It can mean humans, it can mean men and women,
Sure.
or it can mean only the male species, and
Sure.
it has both meanings.
Sure.
So therefore, when you really do mean both men and women, when you're talking about men and women, then choose a word that it's obvious and more directly saying that you, in this case, I do mean men and women, because it is more inclusive then. So instead of he, use he or she, or use they. Instead of manpower, use staff. Instead of man-made, use artificial. Instead of businessman, use business person, and so on. I mean, there's lots of examples. It just creates that both conscious and subconsciousness of women are part of it too. So I'm really, really strong believer in using that gender inclusive language. And even though people can absolutely argue that man can mean men and women, it also can mean only men. So let's be really inclusive. And the third area that I find is that it's about supporting women. Men are very good at supporting men. Women are very bad at supporting women. And yeah, it's very well known. And I think because there's a lot of men in the higher places, then they're used to having men around, they're used to supporting each other. And there's a lot of studies that even show if a man helps another man, they feel like there's they owe them something, and so then they help back. Whereas if a woman does something for a man, there isn't that feeling of now I owe something back. There's a whole different consciousness there. And it's very easy to just be more conscious. If you're looking for an OIC because you're going away, look, can the woman be the OIC? Or if you're looking for giving roles, look for a role for a woman that has more profile or can give more attention, or you've got to support women more in the better roles. And I remember once, very early in my career, I was sent on a women's management course with all women. And they were talking about what it is to be a leader. And they said a true leader will actually fill the gap in the team. They're prepared to do anything, and they're very conscious of all the different elements of the team and what needs filling. And I thought, oh, yes, that's a brilliant idea. And that's what I went away and did. And then years later realized that was the worst thing to do, because all the men were taking the leadership roles and all the women were filling the gaps of the jobs that no one wanted to do. And so you actually have to push yourself forward, and you have to, and women need to support women very, very much so. Yeah. So that they were my three big things that I think really, can make a difference in the workplace. They're easy to do, easy to remember. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a list of the words to switch. Make a list of that and provide that to our team, so we can challenge ourselves, catch ourselves on that as a
yeah.
Might maybe if I'll see if I can research some stuff on that and find that.
Okay.
So,
if I'll just mention, Tim, words are powerful, and of course so are visuals. And actually, I went into a incubator for digital startup companies here in India. And I went in, and of course, it's always really trendy and cool inside there. And their big foyer that you walk into, where they have all their big functions, there were these beautiful, huge posters, and there were 20 of them all around the room with very famous people, the Steve Jobs, people like that, and really, really inspiring quotes. And then I scanned the room and counted them, and there were 18 of men, famous men and their quotes, and 2 of famous women and their quotes. Now, there are tons of famous women, tons. There's no shortage. But even that, so visually, the impact and the message that was sending is super powerful. And so, look around your workplace and see what images are there to support sort of women in the workplace too.
Lovely. Well, it's those same thing you were saying about your children, noticing the subtle language out there in this way too much subtle language. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you're here with us and shared some sort of really deep insights in the agricultural aspect of what's going on and a message to our team. So thank you very much, Joanna. I really appreciate you spending the time today. And I hope that you have a chance to do another talk maybe next year. We can bring some deeper actions for us men as well as women to balance and create the space that I think we need as a culture. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. No, thanks, Tim, and thanks for Forsys. It's been great to meet the company.
Super, thank you. Hey guys, this is Tim Fraser from Forsys, and I wanted to share the video that Joanna Kane-Potaka shared with me privately for the Forsys team. So here comes the video about her thoughts around women in the workplace. So give me a second, I'll present it. Okay, that was awesome. So thank you, Joanna. I appreciate the extra video that you shared with us. We will share that with our team. Thank you.